Lots and lots of Chelsea fans getting in touch with us. Rudesh says, Son without Kane is like a car without an engine. Anthony says, Mourinho's pattern of letting the opposition play the ball while we sit and pounce on the counter-attack is not a style worthy of a team aiming to challenge for the Premier League title. And Con says, Jose Mourinho is such a frustrating manager. A decade ago, unstoppable. Now he's stopping his own teams from playing. If you want to share your thoughts, use the hashtag PL tonight. We want to hear from you. We also want to hear from the boss. Jose Mourinho is talking to Des.
Jose, it was a bit of a struggle in the first half. It got better as you went along. What did you make of the... Jose, it was a bit of a struggle in the first half. It got better as you went along. What did you make of the whole...
Correct. We didn't create in the first half, correct. But the struggle was the penalty. In the end, it's a penalty that decides. In the end, they score in a penalty that is not a penalty. Is not a penalty. Correct. We didn't create in the first half, correct. But the struggle was the penalty. In the end, it's a penalty that decides. Nothing like this is a bit painful. But in the second half, we were different. The spirit was different. The confidence too. I believe that Lucas and Lamela, they helped the team to change a little bit their dynamic. But in the end, the feeling that I have is that the team stick together until the end, fought together until the end, and that is probably a positive thing that we take because tomorrow we have to train and Sunday we have to play, and to finish the game with this positive spirit helps.
You got pushed back a lot in the first half. So was that something you addressed at half-time? Were the players playing to your instruction, or did you have to change it at half-time?
No, they played the way they played. They open the two wing backs. They bring Aspilicueta on the right, quiet wide. This is a dynamic that they have from previous seasons. They are very comfortable going back to that, and it was not easy for us to control it. Vinicius, for example, is a player that has an incredible spirit, but his understanding of how to press, the positions on the pressing are not something that he's still comfortable with. So it was difficult, yes, but no chances. And then in the second half, I think it was much more difficult for them. We pressed them much better and higher. We brought a different spirit to the game, and the second half I believe that we deserve a little bit more.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
He's not happy, and if you read between the lines, I mean, he's effectively saying at the top of that interview there wasn't really much in it, and it was a penalty that shouldn't have been given that ended up winning the game for them. If you're a Tottenham fan sitting at home listening to that reaction from your manager after that performance, what are you feeling?
Yeah, but look, you have to remember, Jake, like, players and managers, you have a different job than just always pleasing the fans, right? And, you know, I'm sure if he was stepping away from football, he might have a different answer. But he's looking at his team that's very fragile at the minute and lacking confidence. And as a manager, it's his job to piece all that together, maintain their confidence with the game that's coming up on. So sometimes, I mean, you almost have to lie. You know, the reality is, you know, the chances weren't there for Chelsea, but they dominated the whole game and probably should have scored 2 or 3 more quite easily. We know that. But that's not Jose's job. Jose's job now is to try and drag his team off the floor because he knows this is a moment where they're in a tough spot. They're struggling. So he can't be doubling down on that and letting... Because we're going to do that anyway. That's what we do as pundits and the fans are going to do it. Everyone's going to double down on how bad Tottenham have been. So as a manager, it's his job to protect them and then try and guide them back to, you know, what they were doing in the earlier stages of the season.
JJ, like, there's only Kane and Reguilon that's injured. He's making it sound like there's, or perceiving that there's sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 regulars that's injured. We're really vulnerable at the minute. We've got to try and get through this.
Yeah. If you went through the numbers of like creativity at Tottenham and kind of like who creates the goals, you know, we all know that it's going to be Son, Kane, Kane, Son, Son, Kane, Kane, Son. And you have took a link out of that team that you just can't, that obviously, which is partly his fault because he's been so heavily reliant on one source within the team. And you take it out, and it's been quite clear over the last couple of games that they can't survive from an attacking point of view. Son, I didn't even see Son today. You know, we was having a conversation the other day, does Son get into Liverpool's front 3? Over the last 3 games, you're going, well, not a chance. No, not as an individual performance. Without Kane, no, you don't get anywhere near it. With Kane, he's a world beater. So it's he's finding it difficult now to obviously find the solutions creatively to get this team back playing the way that he wants them to play.
But I just hope that his conversation and the way he talks to the team is very different to what I just saw there.
Yeah.
Because that was an excuses kind of filled interview more than anything. And I hope, like you say, I understand as a manager coming out and dressing down your players in public maybe isn't the way to do it in today's game. But I just really do hope that them players are getting a message that's very different to that interview. And listen, we can talk about Son and we can talk about Kane, Son not performing today because Kane's not there. But that doesn't get away from the fact that there did not seem to be any game plan. Like, even getting out from the back, there's no movement. JJ done a bit at half-time. There's no game plan. There's no, like direction with this team. I don't see it. I just see people playing off the cuff, hoping to get it to Ndombele at the moment, who's going to do something off the cuff to get Son in, if that happens. Son had one shot in the whole game.
Yeah.
And that was in the 89th minute.
And we can focus on individual players and their own qualities. But let's take Brighton as a really good example, where I know you work as a coach with the youngsters, and we'll talk about them later in the show. But if you take the Brighton and the Tottenham squads, you would argue that Tottenham have more quality than Brighton in terms of individual players.
That's a
right?
fact.
Yeah.
So then you watch Brighton play and you see the plan and you know what they're trying to do. And sometimes it doesn't happen, but you see the progression. That's the problem, I think, that football fans have, is they want to be able to identify with their team and go on the journey with them.
We sit here as pundits and we're looking for patterns of play to create some sort of content at half-time or full-time to analyse the game. I can't see any positive patterns within that Spurs team, especially in the first half. Well, it must be down to either the players, like he said, maybe not taking on the instructions and implementing it in the game, or they're not coaching the team to be able to play and have an idea to get out of certain situations. Because you can look at the way certain teams play in this league. You're talking about Brighton. You can see that they're playing sometimes through memory, through repetition, what they've done on the training pitch. I don't see that with this Spurs team.
Over the last couple of games, they've been quite lost, and that's why you've seen a different performance in the second half. I think against Brighton, they are a team that are playing with fear, and I think Jose doesn't trust them defensively at all. So they're always contained. You don't have that freedom as a player, I don't think, in this team at the minute, to go into dangerous areas of the park and get the ball and receive the ball on the half turn and nick ones round the corner into the forwards. And they don't have that freedom at the minute. And then it gets to a point where in the second half he goes, well, that was horrendous. I need to do something. And he goes, just try and do something.
But JJ, they did a few weeks ago when they're top of the league.
No, but they had a way of playing then, to be fair to them. They had a way of playing at that point, which was, by all accounts, a lot of people didn't enjoy watching it, but it was very defensive, players behind the ball and catching teams out on the counter-attack. And that Liverpool game, that's why it was so big, because when those chances were missed in that Liverpool game, it's flipped the season on its head. These players have completely lost their confidence from that moment, because maybe, all of a sudden...
How can you be so fragile for one game, one instance, to actually change the whole mentality and shape of a season?
Well, I think
that is crazy fragility.
No, look, it's not just that moment. There was another game after that. Then they went to Wolves, I think, and it was the game where they went ahead and then they drop off and then
Against Wolves, yeah.
they concede late. Leicester at home. There's many of those types of moments where all of a sudden he's realising this defence is nowhere near good enough. And it's like, instead of going free, go and play, let's be more expressive and expansive. He goes like that and goes, right, everyone get back here and just, try and defend. And if we can catch teams out with our world-class players like Kane and Son, we do.
Even when they play when they were doing well, when they was catching teams on the counter-attack, you can't sustain that. You can't be a top team at the top of the league. We can go back to someone like Leicester and go, well, they've done it throughout the season. But they were drilled. They knew what they was doing. You can't tell me that with Jose playing that constraint football and then going up to Kane, into Son, it still seemed off the cuff.
It wasn't going to win the league. It wasn't going to win the league, but we have to all sit here and go, we've probably all sat in these seats at one point and gone, yeah, it's a great style of play. Against City when they were doing it, and against other teams when they played against Arsenal, we've all sat here and gone, yeah, teams know what's coming, but they can't stop it. So they had something. How they've lost it is what he's got to figure out.
Well, in the recent run of games, they're 15th in the league. So, a talk of the title or maybe even a trophy is tricky at the moment. Obviously, they've got the League Cup final coming up. Question from Bob for the three of you, to the panel. As a professional player, Would you be bored and unmotivated performing in a team that seems as directionless as Spurs at the moment? And that is an interesting question. You know, what is the experience like as a professional footballer in a team like that?
Well, look, let's take Son, for instance, tonight. Influential this season for Spurs. I think he had one touch in Chelsea's box before the strike at the end. You know him as a personality, as a person, bubbly, smiley. How long's that going to last with that tonight?
I think,
can't go on.
No, I think that's where you do struggle. You know, those attacking players, you can lose them pretty quick if you're not giving them service. Like, we can sit here till we're blue in the face and criticise Vinicius, but realistically, how much service did he have today? He had nothing, did he? Really, there was nothing coming across the box for him to get on the end of. He had one cross, which he should have done better with. But I've always thought as well, though, you know, I mean, in midfield in particular, and as professionals, we do shaping training. It's the most boring thing you can do. We hate it. And there are times in certain games you play a certain way that is not always enjoyable, but you do it to win games of football. That happens as a professional, don't get me wrong. It's not enjoyable. And, you know, right now, it feels like they're all playing that way. But I feel like it affects the attacking players more than, say, it would affect Rio. Rio might look from the back. We're having one, we're not having enough of the ball, you need to get on the ball, you need to do this. But we all are just trying to do our jobs within that. You know, I saw some stuff at half-time. As a midfield player, I'd be ashamed. Like, if you're not looking to get on the ball as a midfield player, you shouldn't be on the pitch. That's the bottom line. You should never be hiding from the ball. So that's what, at times, to me, it looked like in that first half.
I think one area that you'd say that Jose Mourinho, you've got to put him to one side with certain things. There's been a lot of individual mistakes as well. It's not all just Jose Mourinho and his coaching or management that can be called into question. I think there are individual mistakes within this team, especially the defenders recently, that are letting the team down. Like, it's a tight game in terms of the goals and chances created today, but in terms of possession and the way a team played, Chelsea were far and above the better team. And his excuse, like he's saying there, is there's not many chances. It was a silly mistake for a penalty. There's not much in it. But I think the bigger picture for Tottenham to improve, all of the fundamentals and the team shape and the way that the team's identity is need to be put into place for there to be good growth over a short and long-term period of time.
How do you see this playing out? I mean, there's people asking on social this evening, and they're getting in touch with us, whether this sort of has echoes of the end of his time at Manchester United. Does it feel like that yet, or too early for that?
I think it's too early. You know, I think he can turn it around, definitely. It all depends on how the players respond, though. You know, we spoke at the start of the show, players run dressing rooms, players almost run football clubs at the minute, and if they are responding to their manager and the manager's getting the best out of them, then you will visually see it. At the minute, we're seeing a quite despondent team, but I'm seeing enough of a reaction, you know, in terms of the spirit of the team right now to know that Jose still has them. So, in my opinion, as long as he still has them, then, yeah, he stays.
Look, all Spurs fans are fuming. Let's not get it wrong. They're all fuming, but they're hanging on to a glimmer of hope that there could be silverware. Just because it's him.
League Cup.
If it was anyone else, any other manager, they'd want him out. But because it's Jose, it's like there could be a trophy, and that's
and if this level, if this standard of football continued,
you asked this at the end of the first part. No, the answer is yes.
But this is before this game. If this is the way Spurs are going to play football for the foreseeable, and you win the League Cup, is that enough?
Listen, am I going to be personally happy? No, I want to see a better brand of football. Are Spurs fans going to be happy? Yes, they want a trophy.
No, without fans in the stadium, it's cool. If the first fans are in the stadium, it's a very different temperature.
Can you imagine at half-time and full-time?
But I would not be surprised if Spurs win the League Cup. The one-off game, Jose can set his team up to stifle teams, to hit teams on the break. Kane will be back then. It's a different story. We'll see that one-off game.